Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a special edition of the Batters Up here on the Sports Insanity Network. You know me, I'm Marco Duff's Guy Halpern, along with one of my PICs in life, Mike, the Pun Master Rifkin. What are we doing here at 11 o'clock at night? I have been part of one of the most active Mets Facebook groups out there today. And funny enough, so is Mike. And we're talking about the amazing meth fans run and operated by our special guest, Mr. Adam Weinstein. Adam, welcome into the Sports Insanity Network.
Gentlemen, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us.
I know you and I have been working at it for a couple of years, but you've had a very busy time down there in DC, and I get it. So just glad we could work in some time to be able and sit and talk about the fun stuff in life.
True. That's true.
So being in this group, I'm not going to call out all the names. You and I both know them. Mike knows them. We get a lot of regulars in this group, and I know you talk to all of them more than I do. And I've had great friendships with some of them. But with being as busy as you are, how are you able to keep up with all the information that you're doing on one side of the book and then on one side of the diamond?
Well, it was never my intent. Sort of an interesting origin story. I had heard about Mets groups through friends in like the DC softball world. So I played a lot of baseball, softball in DC, and there was a group at the time called the DC Mets group. And for years, I had a friend who had been asking me to come and join this DC Mets group, and I thought it sounds like a pretty bad idea, knowing what the average Met fan is going to sound like on Facebook, right? But then 2015 came along, and I thought if there ever was a time to join a group, we were all having that magical ride in 2015.
Yep.
So I end up going to this group, and sort of, as Mark knows, how I kind of am at AMF. Right from the get-go, that's sort of what was going on at the DC group. I'm posting the threads, people are hopping on, a lot of feel-good stuff, easy year to have feel-good stuff, too. And then it sort of went on in 16 and sort of the same thing. But by 17, we kind of run into that trade deadline. And you guys know I'm not a big fan of teams in go for it mode selling off at the deadline. So the guy who ran the group at the time, he didn't like that. He thought I shouldn't post anything about, we shouldn't be selling off. So I actually went on sort of a search for a group to write those things. Amazingly, right? And I ended up in this
amazingly.
Right. Me of all people, I was not allowed to, I had probably posted 500 very positive threads, but the idea of not wanting to give up, on a team that had a chance, that had just been in the playoffs 2 years ago, when you're really just selling salary for, minimal returns. And certainly the 2017 deadline was that. So I ended up in a random group, and actually a lot of the people in the group came, or at least some of the original people in the group came from that. And this guy that had apparently started the group but had been away kind of came back, and he started hammering down on some of the people in the group. And he threw that guy out, and the guy said, "You need to run a group." And I said, "Absolutely not. I'm not running a group." So he started this group, and without my knowing, it added me and him as the co-admins. And that gave birth to AMF. So that's sort of the origin story.
And
then I just had no idea, I didn't even think I would join a group. And then I'm in a group, then I'm running the group, and then just your natural proclivity. So I do a lot of it multitasking. That's really what it comes down to.
The first thing you brought up was Mets fans in DC. Did you grow up in the DC area, Virginia area?
No, I'm from Jersey.
Okay.
I came to GW for undergrad and then back for law school. And in between, I had worked in New York for 5 years. So
okay,
I'm very much a Jersey guy, but I have been in DC since law school, which is now, coming up on 20 years.
Oh, wow.
And let me ask you, are the streets paved with gold, as they say?
I'd like to see him paved with blue and orange.
Hey, man, we'd like to even see that in Queens.
That would be
So one of the great things is some really don't know is that when I first sign on in the morning, the first thing I check is I go to Facebook. Why? Because that's where I'm going to find out everything that's breaking new. But you want to know what I can guarantee? I'll have a stream of about 15 notifications. Five will be posts from Adam and what's going on, even if it's at 2 in the morning.
wow. Now they're
Adam,
serving that up to you, so that's the algorithm must be getting you some percentage
I
of
don't
the
I
boost.
don't care because I love it. It gets me
Mm.
going on my day. You can ask Mike that there'll be times I'll say you're getting an article because I just had a great comment from Adam Weisenstein, and I've done that.
Oh, yeah.
There we
You've
go.
inspired a lot of stuff on the network through me in articles when talking about Facebook groups.
Well, I'm honored.
So let me ask you this,
Yeah.
Adam. Growing up, who was your guy?
Well, Gooden, I mean, at Doc,
Okay.
I was a pitcher, so I
Okay.
painted a little strike zone in my backyard, and I used to paint the corners, and I tried to mimic Doc. So
Okay.
initially Doc, and I was like 6, his rookie year. So
Mm.
I just thought, man, it's always going to be like this. 85 and 86 happened right when I was, like 7 and 8.
Yep.
All right. So I had never got to missed out on all the rough times, 77, 83. I'm just right into Doc and Darryl. That's sort of, and I was more Doc and Darryl guy. I mean, a lot of Mets fans have this thing with Keith and Carter, but I was more of a Doc and Darryl guy.
I was a Gary Carter guy. I'm not gonna lie. I grew up, and that's how I was a catcher. I became a catcher because of Gary Carter. I was
There you
obviously never as good as Gary Carter. I just ended up more surgeries than any catcher has ever needed.
have that along with. Oh. Well,
Oh,
Carter was awesome. And he,
Yeah.
I mean, you remember he was such a
Oh
heartbeat,
yeah.
such great energy.
I mean, Gary Carter lives a little bit in every Mets fan still today.
Oh,
From his charismatic attitude to his play on the field and to backing it up too.
oh, which is
the energy, yeah, the fist pumps and the energy. And that, I think that matters some. It's not all numbers. I'm a numbers guy, but it's not all numbers.
well. I
I'm
think
excited about that.
heart and soul guy. That's part of the reason there's a lot of Met fans who want number 8 retired.
Oh, yeah.
It should be, and it's got to be. I mean, we've been pushing for it for a long time. Uh, Here's a great question, because Mike had said, who did you grow up? When you became taking over, around 2015, 2016, who were you more favored as a Mets fan then?
In 15, 16,
Yeah.
I was a big Grandy fan.
Oh,
Yeah. I
yeah.
like Duda. I think maybe I'm always one off the guy that is like David Wright. And I like David Wright. Who didn't like David Wright? But if you remember by then, the Wright
Well,
career had lost a little bit of fuel.
unfortunately, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
To my hero,
So,
yes.
right. I never got,
Yeah.
people loved David Wright, but there was not as much love for Jose. I mean, I was just as much a Reyes guy as I was a Wright guy.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I was loving. I was a big Sandy fan. I was a big believer in what we were doing. I loved the rebuild. The staff, DeGrom, Syndergaard, Wheeler, Matz, and then Conforto came up 15, and we had added those pieces. So, like always liked have a good spot for the Granderson guy. If you look at 15, he was the war leader that season.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he had all that experience from playing everywhere.
But think
Yeah,
about
and another guy like heart and soul, right? Like
yeah,
Yeah.
perfect
if you,
guy, great demeanor, such an
yeah.
integral part of that team.
And big part of the run in 15. It starts with him signing in
Really big. Yep.
11. You know, getting from the Yankees.
So then,
Right,
sorry, Adam, go ahead.
yeah, well, he's also a reminder, fans, there's this thing like you've got to sign the most expensive guy, and there's not enough an appreciation when you're getting a really good return on investment in that type of contract, or even a small contract like Todd Frazier. I've also always liked, like this is really smart. You're never gonna get only the Sotos, and
Mm.
fans
Hmm.
don't really appreciate enough when you're getting I mean, the Granderson contract worked out extremely well for the Mets. All right.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You couldn't have said it better. It worked very, very well.
Yeah,
And
you could
he
flip him at
he
the
was a
very
New
end of
York guy. That
the
was the
season.
big thing. He was a New York guy.
Yeah,
It's built for
yeah, right. Yeah, in fact, people there was this perception that he didn't do that well as a Yankee, right? And if you go back, I think it's right at the beginning of WAR and the analytics, and there was still a lot of fixation on batting average. When Granderson got to the Yankees, his batting average went down, but the power went way up. He was hitting 40 home runs, walking
Mhm.
a lot, and then as a Met, he was hitting more in our ballpark, he was hitting more like 30 with the walks, a lot of on base, good speed and base running. So he was also like an early, 2010, mid 2010s analytical darling.
Let me throw this out there because you just brought up the word analytics. How do you feel about analytics in the game? Because basically every team feels like they're run by analytics now.
Yeah, they definitely are. Um, well, I'm a believer. I had read Moneyball and I sort of knew about it. I kind of knew what was going on, but I had these buddies, these two 6'10" twins in law school. So this is like 2009, and they really taught me war. I didn't know that much about it. I just thought I knew like on base and the movie and getting on, and more information is better than less information. So I learned it pretty early, like late 2000s, and I've been a
Oh,
believer. And I really think people think, we use the word analytics, but if you just change it to information,
mm.
like making decisions based upon information, and like
Instead of
you
using the
said,
word
Jeffrey,
analytics, that's smart.
yeah, all 30 teams. This is probably year 25. Maybe in the beginning, like maybe in the mid 90s, Sandy and then Bean were a little ahead of the curve. But certainly those Red Sox teams, Bill James was on board, and even Cashman, of all people, was an early analytics adopter.
I
And
will
now
say
they're
this.
going back, right? Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I'll say this for our network. If you look at everybody here, I am the color commentary. Mike is our analytics and stat provider. Mike is the one who will come up with the stat that we need right at that moment. So when Mike talks analytics, we listen. So that's why it's good to have a conversation
I'll be
about.
honest, I don't love every analytic. I do think there has to be still some gut feel from managers and how games are managed. But yeah, I'm big on statistics. I can't believe I've turned on my own kind.
There you go. Well, in the old days, so 50, 30s, 40s, 50s, and certainly, mostly into the 60s, 70s, 80s, the manager making decisions, seat of the pants, going with the gut, and that he had that authority. I thought the most interesting thing about Moneyball, which doesn't get discussed enough, when you watch the movie or if you've read the book, and you learn that the front office is making all these decisions, has all the power, right? That Art Howe and his
Right.
ace teams, he couldn't even set the lineup. He couldn't dictate how the relievers are used. And here we are, like 25 years later, and people still think, if you look at how people talk about it, the manager did this. I can't, what's with the lineup? What's wrong with the man? They still don't know these decisions are really coming from the front office. And it's based upon a lot of thought and planning. But I think you're right. I think there's still a place for a little bit of gut, too.
You know, in today's day and age, we've watched managers come and go over the last few years. Since 2015, Adam, who have you liked most as a Mets manager between then and right now?
I'd go with Terry. I thought Terry had the right balance. I just you look back and are we ever going to have a manager for more than a few years? It's just look. Why do we get
I
rid of Terry?
I am so happy you said that because I know Mike loved Terry Collins just
Oh,
as much
yeah.
as I did. And there's one thing about Collins that I love that it takes managers more time to do. He defended everybody.
He
He
did.
wouldn't wait. He was out there immediately. He didn't wait two, three pitches. No, something went wrong. He was one of those managers who took step in front. I'm so glad you mentioned him.
Well, there's the Syndergaard throws behind the guy's head,
Ass in the
on and
jackpot.
Terry. Yeah. I mean, that's Terry in a nutshell, right?
I
And
don't disagree with you.
right. And the oddest thing, this sort of sums up the Mets fans, Terry is beloved, 15, Magic Carper at 16. The moment the team dipped in the first half of 2017, people want to fire Terry. Everyone's pissed off. There was very little, this sort of get back to the origin of AMF. There was so little resistance to us going into the 17 after we had just rebuilt. We had such a good run in 15, 16. There was all that talent. There was so little resistance to that decision in 2017. And then we just went through it again the last few weeks, right? And we did it 3 years ago too. That was the thing I think I needed to be in a Facebook group.
And we're going through not just with managers now, but with players because I don't know what other social media have, but there's been the whole Francisco Lindor conversation on whether they should keep or whether they should trade him. It's like 2 years ago, this guy carried the team to the NLCS.
Oh yeah,
So,
Lindor just put up for the probably the best 4-year run since Honus Wagner position. Now he's
Very,
certainly
very tough comparison. Good one, too.
and Mark
yeah.
remembers Honus. He met him once.
Well,
Oh, no, it's
anyway,
okay. Mike can get away with that. I am the old
yeah.
Dallas guy.
Right, like Lindor is he's definitely a Rushmorean shortstop. We just had 4 incredible years from him where he was a wall-to-wall MVP caliber player. There was a little injury at the beginning of the year, and then when he came back, he's a notorious slow starter. And like that's all it took for people to be down on Lindor and open to the idea of, which is not going to happen, but it's the idea that people would have been nonplussed about a trade of Lindor.
You talk about the injury in the beginning to Lindor. Obviously, we're talking about the calf. I mean, I've had my say on the hamate bone. I know Mike has had his say both in article and on the network. Do you believe the hamate bone is still bothering him, the recovery from it, and that's why he's been making unordinary lifestyle choices on the field?
Yeah, he has had a strange season defensively. And even though the data has been pretty good, it still shows him as a little better than average. Like there's been a lot of uncharacteristic plays. I'm not sure if it's the hamate. I also think whatever it is about him, he is a slow starter. And then he came out of the gate, the hamate, and then the calf. So he had two things that offset his normal rhythm and getting going. And then the moment he has like a few days to get through that, you start to see it hits again. Like he hit again, then he got hurt, and then he was slow coming back. I'm not sure about the defense. I think it's more of like Murphy's Law, like our season.
Mm-hmm.
Lindor has 3 times as many strange miscues as he would have all season in a typical Lindor year. But it could be injury related.
Okay, so now here we are. We're in 2026. We've ripped the Mets on the trade deadline, and what happened?
Mm-hmm.
We didn't move. I mean, Mike and I were very concerned over the catcher position. We were concerned they were going to move either Alvarez or Torrens, and we were both very relieved when we saw that even with Pareda just moved up to AAA. I don't want to see Torrens go.
I'm with you.
Torrens as the backup.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, obviously had a huge offensive game tonight. I think he's now at plus 14 DRS. His defense is tremendous. His bat, it was funny. Think about all the things that went wrong this year. And he's been pretty good, but his offense has not been good. And prior seasons, that 3-run home run we got from him, of course, it's the first game right after the deadline. But those are the little things that we have not had during the season. It's not just the injuries. It's not just some guys and Polanco's been. It's even the where's that occasional 3-run bop from Torrens, right? But I agree. I think he's a keeper. Your view about tell me what you thought about the deadline and where your animosity towards those decisions is.
Oh, Okay, so I'll give you my quick point and I'll let Mike give you what he had to say, and then we'll get you in and then we'll put it all together. I looked at this season and I was as hopeful as we were all talking about. The biggest thing for me was that we didn't start off the season with a first baseman, a real one. That
Mm-hmm.
was my biggest issue. And we had one. They just let him go. Fine, we're past that. It's over with. Nothing we can do about it to bring it back. But you're telling me they couldn't go get a more reliable first baseman. At this trade deadline, we knew Peralta was going. There was no question. They weren't keeping
Right.
him. He wasn't going to resign. He was going. They trade him to Tampa Bay, and I had to look these guys up. Yeah, it's three in the top 30, which, translates into something. I just don't like the deal. It was just getting rid of and was the only person on the market willing to give up more than one little player for him.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, you trade Tyrone Taylor. This kid has done everything the Mets have asked him to do as a fourth outfielder. I understand the return they got. I like this kid. Oh, God, I can't.
Rojas.
Jefferson.
Jefferson
Rojas,
Rojas.
thank you.
Yeah.
Number two prospect in the Cubs organization. If they made one trade that made sense, this was it. I mean, this kid has a lot of upside. Is he the future replacement for Lindor? It's a possibility. He's a star shortstop, so we'll see. But he's only in Double A as it is right now, so we got time. My last move was you were able to get rid of everybody, but you couldn't find somebody to give up a soda machine for Kodai Senga.
Hey, that guy pitched a scoreless ninth tonight.
I know, no, I kid and joke. No, my real last part of it was if the Mets were in a true sell off and wanted to get top return, I think they missed out on opportunities with Luke Weaver and Brooks Raley. I understand it's frowned upon. You trade in the division, they got back something. I was disappointed in the return on two very good bullpen pitchers. So those were my stern points. Mike?
I mean, I'll sum it up. I have no issue with anybody that they did trade because we all knew it. We heard the rumors. My question is, was replenishing the farm system the big thing? And what's the plan for 2027? Because you didn't get players who could help you for if there is a next season. You didn't really get anything to help you for next season. You just basically unloaded salaries here.
Yeah. For the most part.
Yeah. So,
Well, I would say when you have guys like Rojas, Spadaforo, and I really like the Weaver return. The Raley return is terrible. So some of these trades, he got absolutely nothing. It just looked like throw a couple guys in and we'll call it a day. And for what Raley had been one of the best left-handed relievers 4 years in a row, is making very little money. How he didn't get a better return there is puzzling. But as bad as that return is, I think Sammy Spot, that Weaver return, the guy is slugging 650. He's fast, and he's the guy that actually believe is going to stick a shortstop. So I think that return's great. As to can they help in 27, if you look at AJ Ewing, this time a year ago, people would not think he was going to be ready in 27 or 26, right?
Agreed.
Yeah, so that's what I look for in the prospects. These guys that sit hovering on the top 100 list year after year after year, they're not rocketing up. They're not getting 2 and 3 level promotions. So these guys who are already in, high A or double A, if things go well, we should be looking at them as major league options at some point next year.
So let me throw this out to you because I think this is an interesting one. They didn't trade Luis Robert, who was rumored, And David Stearns brought up the $20 million club option. I'll speak for myself. I actually like the idea of keeping Robert because I still think the upside's there. Obviously, there's injury concerns, but there's injury concern for every player on every team. How do you feel about the potential of picking up the $20 million club option on Robert?
Oh, I agree with you. And I think that's the luxury of having Steve Cohen, our payroll. Robert, if healthy and it comes together, he's like a 5-6 WAR player, a 5 tool guy in center field. And if you look at that's what we paid for Polanco. Bichette and Tucker cost 2 and 3 times more money than Robert, right?
Mhm.
So I mean, they haven't done great, but his upside is so high. I think he's got to hit the next 2 months though. He ends
Right.
up, yeah. If he is still with these slash lines come September, and then you look at it, this is year three where he 3 years in a row around 85 OPS plus. Uh, but I would still be open to the idea of rolling with it. We knew that going in that he was coming off 2 of those years, and he's had injuries, and the injuries came back, and still it's so tantalizing.
Now we're past the, trade deadline as we're looking into the second half of 2026. We know that unless a miracle happens, the Mets aren't making the playoffs.
You
And
gotta
but we are
believe,
the miracle
baby.
Mets. We are the miracle Mets. So,
We are the Miracle Mets.
there's a lot of talk, and we've done this on the network, and Mike and I have been very vocal on it. The fact that once we saw the Tarek Skubal move going over to the Dodgers, the immediate words that came out of our mouth are we going into a lockout next season? Do you believe with the new CBA that has to be approved that there are a lot of challenges going forward, not just for the Mets? I mean, we're talking all of MLB here. A lot of challenges going forward to even secure a possible start to 2027 with the wanting of some type of whether it's salary cap or salary floor.
I think we're starting on time. I think the lockout is another largely clickbait. I do
Oh,
think this year is more, there's some more concern than in the past. But if you look back, it's been a long time since we've had work stoppages. The amount of money to both player and owners is so large now that I think work stoppage is largely a thing of the past. And I think largely the topic of are we going to have baseball in 27 is mostly a media creation because they know it's going
Okay.
to fill a lot of clickbait and articles and paranoia. And you can do it right at the slow news cycle part of the year. So I have
And
very
look,
little concern about no baseball in 2027 or even a delayed opening.
okay.
I'm not gonna lie to you. We've been concerned. We've talked about it in depth. What it could do. It's nice to hear a combative point on it. To be honest, it actually gives us hope that maybe we're wrong. And I would be the first one to say I've been wrong plenty of times in my life.
And I'd be happy to be wrong on that.
Yes.
There were a lot of them. 81, third of 94, no World Series, a delayed opening in 95. But we're looking now, 30 years. They're
Mhm.
not happening in football anymore. They're not happening in basketball. It's been 3 decades since we had it in
Mhm.
baseball.
Okay.
And the money is just the amount of money they look. If you look at COVID, they got it in, they did the best they could. A huge amount of money was lost. Like I think that's your work stoppage of the decade. I can't see it happening again.
Okay.
The interesting thing is like, I guess the main topic is the inequity of baseball, forcing the smaller teams up. As Mets fans in the Steve Cohen era, we certainly have at least had the luxury of huge payrolls. And then, of course, what the Dodgers have done.
Right.
And it's only gotten worse with the school trade. So, but
So do
that's
you
not
have
usually what leads to work stoppages, right? Like work stoppages come from the union. This is their only negotiating tool to get what they want, only the threat of actually losing games. And I don't think that's going to be a problem. I think the major issue is going to be large market teams and small market teams, and they'll get it done. But the player versus owner squabbles, which led to the work stoppages, I think that's a thing of the past.
and that's a nice thing to hear. Trust me when I say that, Mike.
Well, where do you stand on the issue of this big market versus small market team? Because we could talk about Scooble going to the Dodgers, but I could also bring up, hey, Scooble said, I think he said perfectly yesterday when he met with the media, any team could have traded for me. The Dodgers are the one who just pulled the trigger. So there has to be a little bit of give and take here with both the major markets and the smaller markets, wouldn't you say?
Well, that's definitely true as it relates to the deadline. Although, there was almost a deal with the Brewers, so the Brewers were close to getting Scooby. At the deadline, there's a lot less of an unequal field, but it's like the Pirates to get this deal done, the Mets had to give them money, and it juiced up our return a little bit. But
Mm.
there's still inequity at the deadline. But by and large, there's enormous inequity. My thought as a baseball fan has
Yes.
long been it's outrageous that just based upon your geography, there's such if you're a Reds fan versus a Red Sox fan or Twins fan versus a Yankees fan, and yet we as Mets fans, this certainly benefits us. And there's no media discussion of it. I've been saying this for decades to people how crazy it is. And then if you look at the NFL, the fact that the Kansas City Chiefs, there's no detriment to them being the dynasty, total equal playing field. The NBA is the same way, and in baseball, I mean, look what we lived through with the Yankees and the Red Sox all those years.
Yeah.
And the Dodgers are certainly that. And it's not really the trade deadline of the Dodgers. It's that they have a payroll $100 million above everybody else, and really a lot more than that because of the deferred contracts. So, when you look at the roster they've put together and how much of it has been spending and how little is homegrown, right? That's the change 5-7 years ago when they had, Kershaw and Bellinger and Corey Seager. You had to tip your hat to them. A lot of respect, a combination of spending, a lot of homegrown. They have now become the whole lineup has been bought from elsewhere. They have almost nothing homegrown. Now the entire rotation, they got rid of May and Walker Buehler. And, it's a collection of very expensive Cy Young guys. The Ohtani contract through the roof. So now they've really put it in a place where this is the height of the inequity, I think, even more so than when the Yankees were outspending teams.
And you brought up
Don't get me started on Ohtani.
Right. No.
That's the tipping point, right?
No, we're going to say the one thing on Ohtani
Yeah.
that Mike knows I'm going to say. Where are you on the deferred money BS?
Oh, I think it's total BS. The idea that, for him, it's 68 million out of 70 million each year, or 680 million. And then the idea, not only is it so deferred, but even as a Dodger fan, if you're a Dodger fan in the they're going to pay this price, right? There'll be teams in 2035 to 2044 that are paying Ohtani $68 million to not be on the team. And then it's such a benefit to the current situation.
Right, because if there was ever a floor, his numbers don't matter.
Well, we don't know. It could get grandfathered in.
Right. And just the idea that he's only actually collecting $2 million from them each year. And each team is sort of setting, this is basically, McCone is doing it, the Dodgers are doing it. This is the amount of money that we're willing to authorize you to spend this year. When you look for the luxury tax purposes, he's being taxed at the rate of $45 million. It's the present day value of the contract. But they're actually only paying him $2 million, and that freed up $68 million to then spend.
To allow them to spend others, yeah.
Right. And that's the part that bothers me. We're talking about the best player in the world, and he's on your books for $2 million.
Right.
That's I get it. It's a great loophole they were able to find. And personally, I blame baseball for the fact that they allowed this shenanigan to go down. But that's the part that bothers me, because Ohtani making $2 million, okay, I could go out and spend more money to get Scooble. Yamamoto can make his $325 or whatever it is. Roki Sasaki is going to get his. Oh, by the way, we also
$60 million a year for Kyle Tucker, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Kyle
60. It's just interesting,
It's a walking ATM.
Yeah, it pretty much is.
The most frustrating part too, if you look at it, so many of the decisions have not gone well. They're getting nothing out of Snell, nothing out of Glasnow. Two guys constantly injured, have been injured more than you could possibly expect. The Kyle Tucker contract looks awful. $60 million a year. He's got some of the worst corner outfield slashes. He's batting 7th and 8th for them. When this many things go wrong, Mookie Betts also has among the worst slashes of any position player. Right. And
I
half
think
of
I
that
said that
time,
last night.
who does? Right now, because I think another over 4, he's sitting at 220, 280, 390. Right? For guys
And
playing every day, he's near the bottom. They have had so many things go poorly, and that doesn't matter at all. They're right there with the Brewers for the best record. That sort of feels like when the Yankees could do the same thing. When your farm system is producing nothing, half of the contracts aren't going well. You make so many mistakes, and yet it doesn't matter. There's so much largesse.
And don't forget,
so,
Edwin Diaz has missed most of the year too with the elbow.
Right. Edwin
and then
Diaz,
he'll,
And
they bombed big time last. They ended up winning the World Series. They went huge spending in the bullpen, and they bombed big time. Disaster returns on the bullpen last year. Tanner Scott, total disaster. It's just this is a new level. This is beyond where the Yankees and Red Sox have been, 20 years ago. The only thing that's different is at that time, because of the PADs, you got such return when you were buying players. And now,
right.
you're buying the decline for the most part. And so
You
they're,
know,
yeah, Kyle Tucker would be, if this was 2005, he would be having the best year of his career. He's having the worst year of his career.
hmm.
He barely even
so
noticed him.
does Bobby Bonilla get called the greatest guy in the world because he makes half of what Shohei Ohtani does and doesn't have to step on the field?
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
that was the original. The original deferment was taking small amounts. Like the whole thing about the Bonilla thing is, it's so small. Why didn't they just whatever it was?
Right, but
Yeah.
but now everybody's doing it, and it takes away from the fun for the Mets owning something that nobody else could.
you
Right.
want to call Steve Cohen and be like, dude, just end this now, pay him out.
So here we are. We're going into the second half of the season. Who do you like in the NL to besides the Dodgers? Because we know the Dodgers are going to be up there. Who else besides the Dodgers do you like to be there at the end in the NLCS?
The Brewers. Wall to wall, they've had the best record. This is maybe the best team they put together. If you look at the guys that they're bringing up, they're all from David Stearns. So as Mets fans, we have to look at this. A lot of things didn't go well this year. Guy after guy after guy comes up in the Milwaukee system, and they all hit the ground running. We're starting to see that with Benj and Ewing. Like look at every guy the Brewers bring up, and they've never had less. His teams had prime Yelich, and he signed the Lorenzo Cain contract.
Yup.
They have no money on that team. You look at the lineup. There are no veterans. They have no money. They couldn't bring Burns back. Woodruff's injured. Doesn't matter. They have Mizorowski. They
Oh,
have guy after guy. They traded 3 really good young players to the Red Sox, all position players, and got back
mhm.
2 really good pitchers. They just cannot afford, any pitching. And yet that trade is working out well for both teams. They can only do that. There's so much talent coming out of the Brewer farm system. And I know when you look at the names, you'll say, "Oh, come on, the Dodgers are so much better." But look at the record. They're toe to
Yeah.
toe.
Now
Todd
it's
Brewers.
Mike. Sorry, go ahead.
Now they find a way. They find a way every night, the Brewers.
Question I
Now
have
it's
for you guys: what do you think
yeah.
about the deadline in terms of how many teams are giving up a game back, 2 games back, and selling off when they're firmly in the playoff race? And even expanding beyond that, we were hearing about the Mets starting in May, early June, when we were like 5 games back with 100 games to go. Oh, they have to turn it around or they're going to sell off. What do you think about the idea of what that's doing to the fans? That there's this sense of hopelessness. Now, at this point, the Mets are definitely a very long shot, but we really weren't a long shot in May. The
Mike, I'll
idea
let you
that
lead in.
normalized. Yeah, what do you think about the idea of so
Mike,
many teams quitting to sell off some contracts?
I'm so happy that you asked this because I think it's total BS. Because here's the thing, because this goes into what we really just talked about with the CBA. I don't want to hear a small market team who's 2 games out. I use the Marlins as my example. You're trading Liam Hicks, who's your leader in our team leader in RBIs. You're trading him while you're a game and a half back for
Yep.
prospects. You got a chance here. Like listen, with the Tigers and Scooble, I understand they weren't going to re-sign him, so they decided, hey, we're going to get what we could get for him. There you go. But these other teams, yeah, I don't understand why you're selling off when you're right there. Going, give your fan base something to be happy about. The Marlins, you don't get people in your building anyway. A pennant race with their pitching staff of Alcantara, Max Meyer when he's healthy.
Yeah.
Yuri Perez has had a
Yeah.
really nice year. And we know the stuff he's got. It, I don't like it because you can't now say, oh, well, the Dodgers go get Scooble. Well, why should you wave the flag? And
The baseball media loves it. You'll never see anyone question it. The idea of the doom and gloom narrative. The Mets. This is a year where we really are pretty far back, and you can certainly
right,
justify it. But the other deadlines, 2023, we were 3 months of baseball away from a 101 win team. We had a better roster on paper in 2023 than we had the prior year. At one point, when we were, in the sell mode, we had got about 4.5 games back, and we did it.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no pushback. I was writing at Storm and AMF about it.
Oh
I,
yeah.
post, I posted about Hicks. As soon as that trade went down, the Marlins 1 game back are doing it. So the idea that this is what you have to do, it's the only thing that sense, even if you're 8 or 9 or 10 games back. Why is any team doing this? The whole point of baseball is to try to make the playoffs. We just saw the
Right.
Red Sox one. They only needed 15 days to go from universal, they must sell everybody off on the Red Sox, to they're already firmly in a playoff spot. It took them 15 days.
And it traded for Adley Rutschman and just got even better.
And now they had a great deadline. They got a great reliever from
Oh,
the
they
Giants.
had probably one of the best deadlines of the
and they
of the
crushed the
deadline
White
itself.
Sox tonight.
And they 14-2 tonight. They've now won 29 of 34. There was universal baseball articles. All of them were about the Red Sox should sell. They have to sell. At that point, there were 3 months left. The Mets were in the same position, 7 or 8 games back. This Met team is absolutely better on paper than the Red Sox team. They don't have Juan Soto. They don't have Lindor. They don't have the bullpen that we have. They have a good bullpen, but it wasn't on par with the pen we had 48 hours ago. So even the idea that really good but very much struggling large market teams that have a long shot, that the idea that you would not even allow that to happen when you're in total go for it mode. Right? And
Exactly.
that's
And
a
then
harder one to, right? People will, but it's so hopeless. How could the easy one is everyone would agree a team a game or two back. It's outrageous that they're selling. But what about the other teams that have
right.
long shots? Why is that? Why are we normalizing the idea that, somewhere in the middle of the season, you should just quit on the season, tear it all apart? And really, what are we getting? Pretty slim pickings, mostly salary relief.
Right. My thing was the Tigers. Mike brought it, said the Marlins. Mine was on the Tigers. I understand they made the move for school because they knew they most likely had no chance in getting him back next year. My problem with that is over with. Why trade Casey Mize?
Right.
That was the move. I mean, if you're thinking you're not going to have a shot to bring back Scooble, fine. You had Casey Mize, who then could have stepped up to that ace spot. He's not a horrible pitcher. He has some growing still to do, but he's been pitching better and better year after year. So I couldn't understand. At 2.5 games back, you're trading your number one and number two pitchers.
They are the best team without the best record. They are the best team in that division. They were last year. They have the best rookie in baseball this year who has the best WAR in the American League. They have the best catcher in baseball, arguably the best pitcher in baseball. That team was 31-20. Now they're 34-20 in their last 54. They were very likely going to win the division. So they had the
Oh,
wild card and the division in place. And like you said, you can get a really good return for Scooble. So there was some justification for we've got to flip him. We just can't lose him. But then to not let the rest of the team, and they probably still make the playoffs without Scooble if they had just stayed put. Why not sell Scooble and then add? You could have sold Scooble and then added somebody.
You could have taken that return and been like, hey, anyone,
yeah, let's flip Scooble, but then we're going to get a big prospect return for him. And then he is the only guy that's really going to net you a true big prospect
Or
return.
if you're making this deal with the Dodgers, give me somebody to replace Scooble in the rotation now because I need the arm now.
Right.
Someone like
Get Soriano, right? They
Yeah.
could have gone that cost one, all right prospect. They just didn't get back enough. Right. They could have gone out and got
Yeah.
Clay Holmes and given up about the level of prospect that we get, got for him. So this is a team that rebuilt totally. They spent years doing it. They're sitting right there. I agree 100%. Detroit's the most outrageous situation. They weren't as close as the Marlins. They weren't a game back, but they're sitting there. That division's up for grabs. They are the best team without question on paper, and they were playing like it. So how do you justify that? Not just to send off Scooble. Also, if you have a Scooble, what's the point of having a franchise if you don't keep that guy for the 7 years of control and then try to sign him? Right? They should have been doing everything they could. We're going to sign this guy. If we can sign Framber Valdez to big money and Javi Baez, we've got to try to get a Scooble.
Thank you.
Right?
No, I think that's another great point. You also can't act like you're a smaller market when you're not that. You're the Detroit Tigers. You've spent money. You brought up Valdez, which was December or January. We're talking 7 months.
Miggy Cabrera, they gave twice enormous contracts to Miguel Cabrera. They gave him a 9-year, $270 million extension when he was 33. Right. So they have a history of spending money. When they had Dombrowski spent a lot of money. Right.
Yes.
They have the ability to do it. They're definitely they're not a big market, but they're a mid-tier market. They have a good fan base. When there's only
looks
a
like a beautiful ballpark too.
Ballpark, yeah. And they have it. You could have planned ahead, say, we've got to make a run at this guy. There's only a handful of guys that come around like this. He's certainly, looks like he's heading for the Pantheon.
Mm-hmm.
Just spent all these years rebuilding. What are we doing? So the teams that are a game or two back or whatever, all right. Today the Mets were definitely a long shot, but when you have 90 games to go, 100 games to go, there was a lot of pessimism. I know in AMF, it was a hard sell to get people to think like, what are we doing? Why are we talking about giving up already? Why is there so much apathy? I think people really believe, and they whip you up into a frenzy. They love the baseball media loves the clickbait of the deadline. It's this big jump in, clicks and
yeah.
It's a very empty thing, right? And then you notice,
you're not wrong.
Yeah, it's all about that. And then the day after, like last year, we had a pretty meager deadline. The team wasn't really changed that much. That's most teams, like the Red Sox, you said, had a really good, and then obviously the Dodgers got Scooble, but these are pretty minor players for the most part moving around. And just the idea, but you are also saying, we're not trying. And a lot of, whether you're 9 back and you have a real long shot or you're 1 or 2 back, it's one of the most shocking things in sports to me. The normalization of we're quitting in the middle of the season. We're not even trying to win. And we're making it very clear. And the idea too that they call it selling because you are selling the contract. These are not really trades.
Yeah.
You are turning the money that's supposed to be paid these guys onto someone else's roster, and they have to give you something back by baseball rule. And for the most part, a lot of these guys are prospects is a very generous word.
So here we are.
And what does it do for the morale of the team?
Sorry.
Yeah, nothing. And if you look too, this is a good time to be excited about the returns we got. A couple of the guys are pretty exciting. But I was writing, we did not get a single player from 2017 sale, 2018 sale. In 2023, we put $70 million of Steve Cohen money to let 2 contenders have our Hall of Fame lock first ballot pitchers to juice up the prospect return. And we got some pretty intriguing prospects back. And they have amounted to absolutely nothing. And that's not unusual, right? That level of prospect, pretty good. Not great Gilbert, Ryan Clifford, Luis Angel Acuna. That's the norm.
We're talking about
guys like that.
We're talking about the Jared Kalenics of the past.
Right. Right. Well, when you're a guy who is mostly mashing at every level and is, more of a consensus, and I was in on Kelenic being bad from the get-go. No one's had more threads covering that guy's futility than I have. Probably the history of the world. And a lot of it was guessing. The guy could have been really good, but as a Met fan, I was just this guy is going to be bad. Right? But we see
All
that
right.
with those guys too. Look at Marcello
Yep.
Meyer, right? One and two of the blue chippers don't pan out, and then the vast majority of Acuna, Clifford, and that took $70 million worth of payroll to do that. So people are now thinking like, "Hey, we've got an exciting prospects return," but in reality, most of these guys are meager.
Or meager are not going to see the light of day really anyway. I mean,
Very
no
likely. There's a
offense to these
very good
guys. They
chance.
were good enough to get drafted and play. Let's not take that
Mhm.
away from them. So, I mean, here we are.
Overwhelming likelihood is that entire collection, and we traded a lot of guys, and we got a lot of prospects back. Right?
And
That's
hopefully
a
some of them will turn into, big time help. That's the hope when you make trades like this.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I think
Adam,
collectively, 17, 18, and 23, we probably should have gotten a piece or two, right? And we came away
well,
with nothing. What a
well, we
couple of
lost
these guys,
PCA for that, yes.
right? Well, that went the
Yeah.
other way, right? So out of
Yeah.
probably 100 trades going back a decade, the seller has gotten nothing and 99, and we lost PCA. And that's probably worse than, the percentage that should be, but it's probably about 5 to 10% of these guys end up being something. And in our deals, both sellers and buyers, it was one guy, maybe one guy out of 80.
Well, you could always look at the flip side. They trade Carlos Beltran for Zach Wheeler, and then let Zach Wheeler go to the Phillies, and look what he became.
It certainly got Wheeler in the Beltran deal. I would say that was a different era, you know.
Yeah.
That was 15 years ago. Wheeler was the sixth pick in the draft. He was throwing high 90s. He was a really highly regarded prospect. The amazing thing about that trade, that was for 2 months of a 34-year-old guy making the absolute most money in baseball. That was the seventh year of the Beltran contract, and he was playing really well. But can you imagine at the world today, a 7-year contract that you can flip a guy like that making a ton of money at the time for 2 months and get a prospect that prize back in return? The idea that you could even move a guy making in his seventh year that money today, right?
Mm.
It's very true.
The world
So
changed.
I'm giving you the keys to the kingdom. You get to make one move in the off season. You can it can be a dream move for you or it can be a realization move. You have the choice to bring in one player. Doesn't matter, no trade worries or what. Who would you want to help lead 2027?
Of the available free agents to be,
Yes.
it's got to be Scooble, right?
Okay. We got Scooble. Well,
There,
obviously, big money. It's going to be a fight between three teams. We know who can afford him.
right?
The Mets
The
need a
thing that,
first baseman.
yeah. Well, we do. I'm not as down on that decision. I agree it hasn't worked out well. A lot of teams are, moving guys in and out, position versatility. People like Ryan O'Hearn and Ty France,
Yeah.
you can get generally pretty good production at first base. Even Jared Young's been really solid, right? And he's a guy that can run. He can play the outfield. He can play first base.
He's definitely been, if you're going to call a bright spot in the Mets organization for first base this season, yeah, that he has done that. I mean, obviously, we're missing the crowd pleaser of Pete Alonso.
For sure.
Things happen, but you want Scooble, and I get it. Trust me, who wouldn't? For me, you got Carson Bench and AJ Ewing coming into that outfield. I want Soto as my DH, and I want a permanent spot, somebody who can play right field. That's where I'm looking. I know the Mets are going to make moves in the pitching game, and I don't doubt it because they have no choice. But if I want something, I want something in right field. And what am I going to go look at? I'm going to look at what I can trade. I want to see if Washington be willing to move Damian Lyle because there's been rumors about that, even though the seasons he's having.
Oh, I was hoping you were going to say James Wood. It might be greedy.
If Washington would if Washington would give up James Wood, sure. No,
Wait,
for
wait,
me.
wait, 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 wait. The Nationals have the high school from Family Guy?
Speaking of,
um,
by the
sorry.
way, speaking of perplexing teams, the guy leading slugging in the National League, they traded him with control left. They traded Mead, who's having a breakout season. I know they got back a pretty good piece of Connor early, but can't you sign a pitcher? There's a lot of pitching on the market, right? Like offense at third base, hard to find. They had a homegrown guy in his first full season. They just traded those two guys. There was talk that Abrams was available. They've just rebuilt for 7 years. How long is it going to go on? As a Met fan, I say 7 more, please.
Yes.
But James Wood would be nice. If you look at the pitching, Dylan Cease is having an outstanding year, arguably the best pitcher in baseball this year. No one really even notices.
Yeah.
The return on investment in the top shelf, even despite his injuries, like if you look at Cole, 3 of the first 4 years, he was right there in the Cy Young. He's sort of back. I wish he wasn't. Fried has pitched really well for the Braves. And then, the Yankees, despite the injury, I just think the best investment. Look at Yamamoto. We had Steve Cohen flying all around the world in his jet trying to land Yamamoto. He tried. Scooble's that guy. It's when we look at the hitters, look at how Bregman slashes are way down year one, right? Bregman, Bellinger's played good on defense. His slashes are way down, right? Pete has career lows in most categories, right? The batters, they just over and over again, the position players are not delivering. You look around at Manny Machado, Bogarts, so many of these contracts. And yet,
Yes.
we just don't sell the pitchers. We don't talk about the pitchers that much. Look at the Scherzer contract, 7 years, the Verlander contract, over Cole, over and over again. I would go for Scooble, and I'm stunned in the Steve Cohen era. We haven't. He tried to get Yamamoto. We didn't seem to be involved in Cease at all, but we were chasing after Kyle Tucker. So I'm a little surprised about that, and I think if there's an adjustment, we've spent an enormous amount of money under Cohen. We have not signed a long-term pitching contract to a top shelf guy.
Very, very good point.
So we are spending a lot of money on Frankie Montas, Sean Manaea.
Oh God, please don't bring up Frankie Montas, please.
All right. And I'm not opposed to that too. So say, well, look, Clay Holmes. That was a 2 year,
Clay
20
Holmes, I didn't
million
want to see go. I was very adamant about that. I wanted them to keep him, but
You could bring him back.
that is also very true. Adam, I want to thank you very, very much for taking time out of your busy life to sit down with two regular old Joes who follow you every day and are commenting pretty much every day. Me, Stu, Peter, we're all live and active with you every day, and it's because of you, Adam, is why this Mets group thrive. And sometimes from growing up in this country, you never hear the good things in life. You only hear what you've done wrong. I brought you on to not only just show you off, just to show you how accomplished not only a baseball fan you are, how much of a great guy you are.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Give us a shot at a chance to interview somebody as prestigious as yourself.
Well, I appreciate it.
Because we just talk to each other. We're not interesting at all.
I mean, look at the two of us. If they put us on the cover of a Madden cover, would you play it?
Absolutely.
Speak for yourself. I'm making people's sexiest person of the year, man.
I would say if there's a goal at AMF, if you look at the thread, the wall, everyone is constantly pointing out in general, other places, all the things that are going wrong. And I said, let's look at the things going right. Even when we're sailing high, 101 wins, the second half of 22, it's easy, right? But there's still a lot of focus. There's a lot of hating on Vogelbach and whatever one guy is in a slump. And there's just so much of that. And if you post about those things, if you talk about those things, you feel good while you're doing it. Right. And we all can pick out the things that haven't worked out, teams make mistakes, and then you don't feel good. As fans, we all want to win. We all want, the team to do well. And yet, when there's things going well, those are the things to point out. We all know that, Polanco hasn't hit. Some of the decisions haven't worked out yet. But like, what's the fun in talking about that, right? We all know there are certain things. So that's the thing. If you go to AMF, you're going to see things to feel good about. And it's easy to do when you're doing well, but when you're not doing well, like 2026, still a lot of things went right. And if you look at the trade deadline, we had no problem trading all of those guys because he's made a lot of decisions that went well. And they were all the free agent years guys. These are not 26, 27, 28-year-old guys who are in their prime. A lot of these guys were mid to late 30s. All of them went well. He didn't have to put any money in. We only did that with the Pirates to juice up the return. But that's because a lot of things have gone well. This was a great bullpen. He landed on Rayleigh, landed on Minter, landed on guys over and over again. Tyrone Taylor. So there's a lot of things to feel good about. And that's sort of the idea at AMF.
And if you want to join,
do the good things.
If you want to join this group, go right onto Facebook, go into your search tool, and type in Amazing Mets fans. Because when you sign in, you say, we saw you guys on the Sports Insanity Network. Adam will bake you a free tray of cookies. Don't worry about it for every person who joins. Please subscribe here at the network at www.sportsinsanitynetwork.com for all the blogs and vlogs. We're on X at SInsanityReal. Again, we want to thank Mr. Adam Weinstein for taking time out of his very busy schedule and knowing that he will probably be up at the crack of dawn ready to go as always.
That's right. Well, thanks for having me, guys. It's been a real pleasure. Glad to come back on whenever you want to have me on.
Trust me, I have some ideas I would like to send you if you have the time. Trust me on that. Everybody, you know where to follow, you know where to like. The Mets aren't gone, they're just down.
You gotta believe, though, baby. You gotta believe. We started off the post deadline with a big win tonight. Crazier things have happened in life.
You never know, right?
That's right.
The motto of New York. Hey, you never know. With that,
the Tigers might do it without all those guys. The Mets might actually do it. You still look. There's still a lot of talent. Who has how many post deadline decimations still roll out talent that we're rolling out?
This is true. Everybody, thank you.
Soto back, anything's possible.
He's coming back, right? And then you have Soto and Lindor. You've got two Hall of Famers back to back, and then Bichette. Bichette's going to have a really big August in September. You saw it tonight.
Well, yeah, he's going to be biting for that bigger contract.
Right. Every other moment in his career, he's been a 300 hitter with power. Why it had to be the first few months of his walk here for us. Every other moment of Peralta's career, he's been a good pitcher, a number 1 or 2 on playoff Brewers teams. Why did it have to be the walk season for Peralta and for the Mets? Right? It's just Murphy's Law for them, Murphy's Law for us. It just doesn't make sense sometimes.
Again, we'll catch you all on the flip side. Thank you very much for joining tonight.
All right. Take care, guys. Thanks for having me.